Blog Talk Radio.
The purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. You're next to me.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and founder of Alzheimer Speaks Resource website. I welcome you today. We're going to have a fabulous show talking about a new play called Cracked, and our second half we're going to be talking about memory cafes and Alzheimer's cafes, which have just spread all around the world, and it's been fun here in the U.S. to kind of watch their growth. So for those of you that are new to our show, I'll just explain a little bit about who Alzheimer Speaks is and why we got started. Bottom line, my mom had dementia for 30 years, and I just felt that our family was lost, not knowing the support that was out there. And so I started Alzheimer Speaks as an advocacy-based company to provide multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort. I just think it's so critical for us to raise everyone's voice and connect all the wonderful resources around the world, sharing our knowledge and sparking passion. And it's really been an honor to do this. We have lots of different platforms. We've got the radio show, but we have the resource website. We have the blog. We have a little YouTube channel. We do webinars called Dementia Chats, where those are free to the public. We do them twice a month on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And our experts are diagnosed and living with the disease, and people can come, professionals and family alike, and those diagnosed as well, and ask questions and have conversations about how do we improve care? How do we improve life? How do we make it purposeful for those diagnosed as well as those caring for people? So again, bottom line, Alzheimer Speaks just believes that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having everyday conversations like we're going to have today on the radio, we're going to be able to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those living with the disease continue to live their lives with purpose. It's a way we can bring true understanding of this disease and remove some of those myths that create the loss and isolation and fear that so many families are struggling with. At our core, we believe collaboration is really the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia. And I know the power of collaboration is working because we were lucky enough to be named the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And that was not done, by Alzheimer Speaks. That was done by each of you, just taking those few seconds to like us, to share us with your Twitter tribe or share us with your LinkedIn colleagues or your Facebook friends or your Google circles. Getting this information out, we like to just disseminate the information, and you can help us do that. The more that is out there, the more people will tap into it and feel comfortable that this is okay. There's so much shame attached to this disease, and we really have to remove that. So again, I thank you for getting behind Alzheimer Speaks and helping us spread the word to ease life with dementia for all around the world. Today, when we have our conversation, like always, we would love for you to join us, and you can do that in two ways. You can call in to our show at 714-364-4757. That's 714-364-4757, or you can sign in and use the chat box. I'll be monitoring that as well. Or maybe you're thinking, gosh, I might make a good guest. Just shoot me an email. You can go to alzheimerspeaks.com, click on the big contact button, shoot me an email and let's have a conversation. We interview everyone, those diagnosed, family members, friends, advocates, business professionals. We've had Harvard research on. Like today, we are going to have theater on, which is fun, grassroots projects. So everything is game. If you can help improve care for dementia, that is our goal. I do want to give a shout out as a reminder on Wednesday, July 8th at 6:30, Dr. James Donahue of the New England Clinical Trials will be giving a presentation on Alzheimer's disease and clinical trials at the Ocean View Retirement Community in Falmouth, Maine. And they will have refreshments and tours of the legacy memory care. We'll go ahead and follow that presentation. Keep in mind it's free, but space is limited. So if you can RSVP to www.oceanviewrc.com/RSVP. Again, that's www.oceanviewrc.com/RSVP, or you can call them directly at 201-781-4460. Again, that is 201-781-4460. Before I introduce our guests, I'm just going to shout out to a couple other organizations that are just dear to my heart. Alzheimer's Disease International is the association of all Alzheimer's associations around the world. In fact, they just released a new study regarding women in Alzheimer's. They also have just launched a new website for September, which is World Alzheimer's Month, where if you have an activity going, you can go ahead and input that. So check out Alzheimer's Disease International, referred to as ADI. The Purple Angel Project has a Kickstarter program going. They have filmed over in England, and they want to get over to the U.S. to show the spread of what is happening over here. You can just go to alzheimerspeaks.com on our homepage. You'll find information. There's a roundtable discussion that will tell you a little bit more about it, and then right underneath you'll find the short video in Kickstarter that is on there, but we would love you to be able to help. It's very exciting, all the things that are going on. The Purple Angel is now in over 17 countries, so talk about a grassroots phenomenon to pull all dementias together. It's been really cool to be part of that. If you're looking for more of a holistic approach, don't forget about the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. There you'll find information on diet, exercise, and meditation. Many are dealing with specific types of dementia like Lewy body or frontal temporal lobe. Each of those have their own national associations that can help you specifically with those symptoms, and other dementias have problems with speech, which is called aphasia, and there's a National Aphasia Association. And aphasia is spelled A-P-H-A-S-I-A. That's A-P-H-A-S-I-A. Last, I want to thank everyone who participated in the Dementia Action Alliance surveys. We had posted two surveys. One was for caregivers and care partners. The other was for those actually diagnosed. We got a great response on those, and our group is really looking forward to analyzing that information and seeing where we go from here. If you are interested in participating in a clinical trial or checking that out, again, you can check out the Alzheimer's team on Facebook, or you can go to our homepage, and on the right-hand column there is a survey you can take to see if you or a loved one would qualify for that survey. Last, I'm just going to give a quick shout-out to HealthStar Home Health, who once again is going to be at the Minnesota State Fair doing some amazing work with their memory screening. Last year they had, I want to say they talked to like 14,000 people and did over, I want to say it was 2,200 memory screenings. So they're really looking forward to getting back again this year and doing that. Plus we're going to have a a large announcement we're going to be making there, but I can't talk about it quite yet. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our guests today, who have really worked so hard on this play called Cracked. Sherry Dupuis is the co-lead researcher and of partnerships in Dementia Care Alliance and a professor in the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies at the University of Waterloo. Her research uses participatory approach as a means of promoting culture change in dementia care, which is so needed, and I'm excited for all of her work that she's doing. And they are actively including care partners now in research, education, and practice. She explores the possibility of art-based research and alternative representation of research results in shifting images and understanding dementia and the actions in dementia care. So welcome, Sherry. How are you today?
Very good, thank you, Lori, and thank you for having us on your show.
Well, excited to have you here. You do such a good job at ensuring that the voice of the person with dementia and their care partners is included in research, and to me that's just so critical. So I really thank you for that. Let me go ahead and introduce Julia Gray, and Julia is a Toronto-based theater director, playwright, and choreographer, and she has a particular interest in creating new collaborative developments in theater. She has collaborated with health researchers on several plays based on health research, including After the Crash, a play about brain injury, and Seeing the Forest, about patient safety, co-written by Dr. Gail Mitchell. She's also worked with a Canadian stage company and Young People's Theatre, the Charlatan Festival, as well as many independent theater groups. She is pursuing her PhD at the University of Toronto as well. So what a nice mixture you have there. Welcome, Julia. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great. It's great to be here.
Well, good. I'm going to just put you on hold, and we'll introduce Mary Ellen, and then we'll get into our conversation. Mary Ellen MacLean works across the country performing, directing, and teaching theater. She has studied with master teacher Tony Montanaro at the renowned Celebration Barn Theater in Maine here in the U.S., and she was a founding member of the Halifax Physical Theater Assembly. Just in Time, with whom she toured worldwide for 20 years, as well as starring in 3 national CBC television specials with that company. Her one-woman play, Frankie, toured across Canada and aired on Bravo TV. Some of the TV and film credits include Hatching, Matching, and Dispatching. Will Be Fun, Wonderful, Roundup, Made in Canada, and let's see, Shattered City. She's just got such a great history, and brings just a wealth of information and experience with her today. So welcome, Mary Ellen. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and I'm so happy to be part of this conversation.
Well, good. We are thrilled to have you here. I'm going to start by pointing a question first to Sherry, and just so we don't talk over one another. So, Sherry, can you tell us, what was behind Cracked? What got you started in creating this play focused on dementia?
Well, there were a couple of primary reasons. I think, first of all, my colleagues and I have spent our careers trying to really change the way that people with dementia are understood and changing the culture of dementia care. And we, like you, are incredibly concerned about the ways that people with dementia are represented in the media, public discourse, in academic and other writings and policy documents and so on. So we felt strongly that we needed to challenge what we call the dominant tragedy discourse, which focuses solely on loss, especially the loss of self, and on deficit, which we believe is an incomplete story. And we knew from our research the profound consequences that this discourse can have on people living with dementia and their families. So we wanted to do something about that. The second reason, I think, is that we also know from years and years and years of experience that the traditional ways that researchers share research results is really not effective in prompting personal and social change. And so we needed a means of communicating our results and the multiple and diverse lived realities of dementia that would be far more accessible and stick with people, if you will, move them in a way that would want them to take action. So we believe strongly in the power of the arts, and so felt that if we were going to change the discourse and the culture of dementia care, the theater was the way to do it.
Wonderful. Well, it's just such a wonderful medium for people to learn and to be exposed to change and in real life out there. So I think that's just absolutely a fantastic route. I'm going to ask, how did you pull everybody together in terms of your collaboration?
So 3 of the researchers had worked together before on another play called I'm Still Here. And then we drew in another researcher that we knew of who had also worked on research-informed theater. And 2 of our researchers had worked with Julia Gray, our playwright and director, and so we gave her a shout to see if she would be interested in working with us on this project. And then together we did auditions for the actors, and so did 1 or 2 days auditions for actors who would be willing. We were really looking for people and actors who would be willing to collaborate with us on the development of the script. And so really it was a process. People we wanted to be involved in a process. And Julia, I'm sure, could talk more about that. So that's basically how, sort of in the beginnings, we brought people together.
Okay, great. Julia, I'm just going to pull you in and see if you have some things to add to that in terms of picking, the researchers and artists working together.
Well, I'll just add to say that, Sherry's right, that we were really looking for fellow artists who were interested in social change, and so and who were interested in building the show from the ground up. So I wasn't coming in as playwright with the script and saying, this is what we're going to do. We knew from the get-go that we were going to collaborate with the health researchers in the studio. We wanted the actors heavily involved in the development process. So we were looking for people interested in social change, but also interested in really working from the ground up to create this project. And I'll also add that it really is an exceptional group of people. We have gathered not just exceptionally talented, but very, very generous and kind and receptive people, which is, I think, when you're working on a project like this, which can often be quite emotionally difficult, you do need to gather people who are sort of good people, good folks, and that's certainly what we have.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's it kind of amazes me to think, and I suppose it's probably pretty normal in theater to have researchers because you want things to be accurate and stuff, but it's something that my mind as kind of an outsider just doesn't click, with those 2 pieces merging. Is that pretty common or not in theater?
I would say that it's not that common. I think that maybe in theater there might be you might consult with particular experts if you're developing a play on a particular topic, and certainly there's a growing popularity with doing sort of verbatim or documentary theater, where you're building a piece of theater based on real experiences or in collaboration with community members. But this kind of cross-disciplinary work is, I think, pretty rare. We just to fill your listeners in, we worked in studio, not just the artists, but also the health researchers were right there with us doing theater work, and we were having to introduce them into doing improvisation work and movement and responding. We had some transcripts of stories that people with dementia and their family members had told us. That was one of our resources that we were using, and so it was very exciting to be able to collaborate in this way with the health researchers. I think, too, just to also put this in context from the academic point of view, it's also unique. Academics are notorious for using their words and using their brains, and we were doing that too, but we're also using our bodies and our senses and our emotions and all of those, and imagery and metaphor, and that's quite outside the box from an academic point of view, and I'm sure Sherry can probably comment on that as well. But as a last thought, I think it was quite apt that we were drawing on these, our own bodies and emotions to be developing these things, which of course you always do when you're making theater. But people with dementia, of course, are living in their own bodies in such a present way, because that's and so to be able to use this so heavily in our own process was, I think, quite apt.
Oh, sure. Sherry, do you have anything that you want to add here? I have to get your mic live to Julia's comment.
No, I think it's perhaps one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had as an academic, and I think the other researchers would agree. As Julia mentioned, the team that we were able to bring together are incredibly multi-talented in terms of being musicians and performance artists and actors and creative, and so it was a bit scary for us who are not really that creative to be able to go into that space, but they were very generous in terms of nurturing us and making us feel welcome and helping us engage with those improvisational activities and other activities that Julia and the team created to, and so we really felt a part of it from the very beginning, and that's a very, very special feeling that I'll never forget over my entire career.
Yeah, to have that level of involvement is pretty neat. I'm just going to ask, pull in Mary Ellen here and see if she has anything to add to the last couple of questions that we asked in terms of process. Mary Ellen, anything you'd like to add?
Yes. Well, I think it's a very unique combination of having the researchers right in the room, because often when you're creating work, you will say to the team, I wonder what that means. Like, what kind of, what in this case, what does frontal dementia, lobe dementia mean exactly? So it was incredible to have this generous group of women there to say, we can tell you what that is. So that was really amazing. And then to have them be part of the improv process, getting up, because they have their experience working with people for over 20 years and that are living with dementia. So they brought a whole beautiful insight and layer to the work that we as actors were so appreciated and still do. So we really feel like it is a real ensemble effort. It's very, for me, I've created a lot of work with ensembles, and this is a very unique, wonderful adventure with all these folks.
Oh, cool. Sherry, I'm going to throw another question back to you again, and that is, how were people with dementia and their family members and their experiences included in the process? Was that something that was worked into the play?
Absolutely. We didn't believe, and I certainly haven't throughout my career felt that we could speak for people with dementia without actually having them engaged in a collaborative process. So there were a number of ways that we did this. The research that we used to inform the development of the script were the stories told to us by persons with dementia and their family members in a number of research projects that we conducted either on our own as independent researchers or as a collective. But one of the really powerful days for me was providing an opportunity for the actors to actually engage directly with persons with dementia when we hosted an arts-based research day. And during that day, we brought together persons living with dementia, family members, visual artists from the communities, our actors, and researchers. So in the morning, we explored with persons with dementia and family members what the impacts of this dominant tragedy discourse that I mentioned was, how that impacted their lives. And everyone in the room listened and learned from the people with dementia about what it felt like to be misunderstood and stigmatized in the ways that they had experienced. And that we also got to hear directly from them about their real lives and all the possibilities they had found in their lives despite living with dementia. In the afternoon, each person with dementia and family members were paired with a visual artist, one of our actors, and a researcher, and together the groups created 8 different visual representations that really challenged this dominant discourse and reflect what they want the world to know about them. So it was an incredibly powerful and moving day, and I think we were all changed by that day. And we also brought the actors to a long-term care home and provided opportunities for the actors to talk and sing and joke and laugh with people with dementia who were living in those settings. So the actors were then able to bring those direct experiences that they had with people with dementia into the development workshops.
Oh, cool. I'm going to go ahead and just pull Julia in. Julia, what was it like for you to be part of this process, to actually, talking with families and those affected by the disease and going into some of these communities? Did it change your view of what you thought dementia was?
Oh, gosh, that's a really good question. Yeah, I would say that it did. That's the short answer. It did definitely change me as a person, and it changed my perceptions of people with dementia. And it changed the possibilities. Of, Sherry just mentioned that of how one can continue to be and be supported and live with dementia. And I think that I know for myself, and I think all of the artists involved, and Mary Ellen, maybe you can probably speak to this as well, that sort of internal process and that kind of turning over of your own assumptions was really important even for the development of the play itself. Because the thing about assumptions is you don't know you have them, of course. So it can be very challenging and very difficult as well to sort of say, oh my gosh, I did that, or I have thought those things, and so we tried to use those sort of aha moments, or those moments where you feel a bit smacked in the face in the play, because ultimately we wanted to be able to reach our audiences as well, to have them have those moments of, oh my goodness, what have I been thinking, or how could I have seen it this way, so we drew heavily on the experiences, of course, of people with dementia and the stories they were telling us, but also on our own sort of bumps in the road.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really interesting because, we do so much as individuals unconsciously, And then I would imagine there's probably times where, the director or someone has to point something out going, no, that's not quite true, and to be able to do that tactfully. Or this is how you're coming across, and you're kind of shocked that, I am? Those types of things. So I can see that being really an interesting process. Were any of those types of, since I haven't seen the play, have any of those types of scenes, are they in the play? Because I think that's pretty common too. One of the challenges that families have, in people living with dementia is calling people on things like that and trying to redirect them and change perception. So are there any of those particular scenes even in the scene of redirection or how do I want to say, focus or education, little tidbits of, no, that's really not what it's like for me?
Yeah, I can speak about two moments. There's one scene where there's a person with dementia. It's actually the character that Mary Ellen plays, so she may at some point want to chime in about this too, where we see her in a long-term care home, and she's moving and singing, and we come to understand that she is in her own memory and in her own body dropping lobster traps into the ocean, which is what she used to do as a teenager. Mm-hmm. A healthcare provider then kind of walks in on her and says, "What are you doing? It's 3 a.m. We need to get you back to bed," without realizing that in this character, in Elaine's world, that she is actually dropping lobster traps. There's a moment when that healthcare provider realizes, this is where Elaine is at, and I need to enter her world to be able to engage with her. And we see that moment where she steps in and says, well, how about we have a little tea before you continue with the traps? And it's that sort of that connection, that moment where Elaine is able to look at her and say, okay, that would be nice. And they move off and they go and have some tea together. So the important thing is how the healthcare provider, rather than pushing Elaine to say, you have to get back to bed and stressing her out, she actually enters her world and relates to her in that moment where Elaine is at.
Okay.
As another moment and a little bit more personal, we had talked as a team about writing a scene. We talked as a team about the idea more broadly about following the person with dementia, following their lead and where they're at. And one of the things we talked about was the intimacy between partners. And so we had another character with dementia named Vera, and we wanted to reflect that changing intimacy between her and her husband Tom, and what that might look like if the partner without dementia follows the lead of the person with dementia. So I really, as the writer, I really struggled with how to be able to write the scene, and I had to do a lot of very deep reflection and thinking about and imagining what it might be like for me and my partner if one of us were to have dementia. What would that be like? What might that be like for me if I had dementia and I didn't recognize my husband anymore, or vice versa if my husband were to have dementia. And just as a reference, I'm turning 40 in about 3 weeks. So I'm a middle-aged person. I don't have dementia. My husband does not have dementia. And so in order to write this, I really had to reflect on my own deep assumptions about dementia and intimacy and what that might look like. So, and it was very important for us as a team that we have Vera, the person with dementia, lead this connection between the two of them, and that it was Tom, the husband without dementia, that was able to be open to her to her lead with this intimacy. And we did that. We in the scene we see them come into an embrace. She becomes quite alarmed and doesn't recognize him anymore and pushes him away. And then they have a conversation after this where he is saying, I want to support you. I want to be with you. I want to love you. And she is saying, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to be steady. We can move through this together. You can follow me, and that's okay.
Wow.
And it's a very short scene, and it was and it's gotten a lot of the audience responds to it quite powerfully as well.
I can imagine. I got teary-eyed just listening to you say that, because it's like, oh, wow, because that I mean, it's so true and it's so simple, and caregivers and care partners want to be so strong, and the person with dementia just wants them to be there.
Yeah.
They just want their relationship, and I think sometimes we care so fiercely that we get stiff, and we get kind of almost mixed in concrete in terms of and rigid in terms of how things need to be done and should be done and stuff. And so it's just a very, very interesting process, as a whole. It looks like we just lost Mary Ellen, and I was just going to pull her in, so we'll wait till she calls back in. So let me go ahead and pull Sherry in here. And Sherry, any comments you want to add to what Julia was just talking about? It sounds like just some beautiful scenes.
There are, and I think the actors are just so incredibly talented that they were able to reflect some of these very challenging issues in a very compassionate way. I think also one of the things that we tried to do in terms of assumptions is really expose some what we call absurdities in the way that we interact and practice with people with dementia that we found in our research, and that we take for granted. We don't even think about. We just do the job. We just do the interact. And so we were able to, with the help of Julia and the actors, to be able to find a way to expose those absurdities in really quite funny but moving ways. And so examples about how, if you want to bring the person with dementia out on an outing, the bureaucracy and the amount of work that is needed just to be able to take them out is kind of ludicrous. And so Julia and the actors were able to play with some of those absurdities. We had so much fun actually playing with those absurdities, and then some of them actually really made it in a script. And I recall an administrator of a home coming up to us after a performance and saying, "Oh my goodness, we have that policy in our home, and I am going there right now, and we're going to reflect on that and get rid of and change the policy," because it was just so clear to him. All of a sudden it never had occurred to him, but in seeing it, he was able to sort of say, "Oh my goodness, we do that, and we have to stop doing that."
Yeah,
and that's the power of the.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that's the power of the theater, I think, is that people can place themselves in it in a comfortable way that allows them to sort of look at their own and reflect on their own practices and assumptions and be able to hopefully say, "Oh my goodness, I do that, and I have to stop doing that," or "We do that, and we have to stop. We have to find a better way."
Yeah, it really is. It's such a soft and subtle way to also make people not feel alone. It addresses the problem, but they see, "Oh, I'm not the only one who does that." Because sometimes when you're caring for somebody, sometimes things can get kind of accusatory. There's a right way and a wrong way, and hopefully there's an option shared with them to be able to do it a little differently as well, on that. So I think that's great, showing that impact of an administrator going back and going, yikes,
Yeah.
thanks for pointing that out, and having the courage to even admit that that's what they do. Some will choose to, ignore it altogether, but he saw that there was a better way. To be able to do that, and then to have the courage to announce that and tell you about that, because some people would just maybe either not change it or sneak back and change it, like no one will ever know this is the way we used to do it, but I think the play and theater makes it okay to have that honest discussion, and to me that's really the only way that we're going to make effective change, is to have honest discussions and get rid of the embarrassment and know that all of this is a learning curve. And, we can always improve. So let me go ahead and pull Mary Ellen. And we lost her there for a second. Let's see if we can get her live here. Mary Ellen, you there?
Hi. I'm back. Sorry about that. Sorry.
You're back. No, that's okay. That's okay. We were just talking kind of about the play and what it was like to, actually be with people that had dementia and their families and out in the community, and how did that feel to you in terms of performing and kind of the mix with that? Did that have an impact on you personally?
Absolutely had an impact, and my dad has dementia, and that is why I was personally interested in this project when I heard about it. And when I came to audition. So I have spent a lot of time with him. He lives in Nova Scotia. I live in Toronto, so I don't see him on a day-to-day basis, but I certainly see him quite often because I'm there, back and forth quite a bit. And speaking, when Sherry was talking about the day that we had with the visual artists, the actors, and the folks living with dementia, that was remarkable day, because I think what it did, it dropped for all of us. There was throughout the day there was aha moments and realizations and assumptions that were completely changed, which is such an important part of the discussion. And for me, portraying Elaine, I drew a lot of that from my dad, because he is also he's not somebody, he's very physical. He's 87 now. He's still, they have to get him heavier weights to work out with because he's in pretty good shape. And he has a really great sense of humor, and he's very much engaged. So I think that, for every individual that has dementia, of course, it's their personalities and who they are, and that's such an exciting thing to explore. And also that they come to things differently than when they did not have dementia, perhaps. Like, for example, my dad loves sitting, listening to music now. He never used to do that so much. And he actually engages in singing where he is. And so all of those experiences for me as an actor, it was really great to go to the long-term care facilities. And it was hard also, because it's hard to see people not being visited by their family members, not having the kind of engagement that, say, someone like my dad has with my other siblings, or some of the folks that we met and sat with in the long-term care facilities. And to see also that there are really beautiful things being done in some of these long-term care facilities. And as Sherry was speaking to have a piece of theater come in and shake it up for people and actually promote change, I think is incredible. And I think that's the power of storytelling and the power of theater, and that we as human beings are drawn to that from centuries and centuries and centuries ago. It's a powerful, powerful art form, and it's a powerful learning platform. So I think being involved in this project and having that truth come from the people living with dementia, and really honoring their stories and who they are, That's what I'm very proud about this project for that, and that it stands as a piece of theater also, that it is a really good piece of storytelling.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, it's it's just so fun to hear things like this. I love having the different approaches of the different mediums out there to get people engaged. And I think, to me, it's just so critical because everybody learns differently, and we take things in different ways through these different mediums. And I just think it's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and pull Julia back in here again. And Julia, you had people on your team that had dementia, and were they actually in the play itself at all, or did you just learn from them? I just want our audience to have a better understanding of that.
We were learning from them. So we met with them, we collaborated with them, but they weren't actually the performers themselves. Mm-hmm. Many in our team, including Mary Ellen, she just commented on her own relationship with her dad. Many in our team are living with dementia, in that they have family members who are living with dementia. Most of our team, actually, although not everybody. But even the folks who who weren't living with dementia in that way, their insights still were very important to be able to draw in about, well, what is it that you bring about some assumptions about dementia, or what is your understanding of dementia, not living with it directly, or not living with a family member who has dementia. So we drew on the experiences of people with dementia in a number of different ways.
Okay. And were they there at all during practice, or did you just kind of do more focus groups to learn from them and then pull back and create? Or were people with dementia and their families actually observing as this was kind of unfolding?
We did do works in progress presentations. So at sort of selected points in our process, we would take certain scenes or certain songs that we were working on, certain images, and we would put them out in front of, we would invite audiences into our rehearsal space, including people who were living with dementia and people who were working with people with dementia, and put those scenes in front of them to say, what do you think? How is this working for you? Is this actually reflecting things that you've experienced? Are there any concerns? Is it funny? Is it sad? How are you responding to this? And then we would take their responses, and that would help us as we continue to craft the play. So even though people living with dementia may not have been with us on a day-to-day basis, they certainly were drawn into rehearsal through our works in progress. Okay,
great. And then I'm going to just... go ahead.
No, just the big thing about theater is, of course, is that you're going to eventually present the play to an audience. And so to have those kind of key moments along the way where you're sort of checking in, especially with the people who have shared their stories with you, is integral to the crafting of the play.
Okay, well that makes perfect sense. Sherry, I'm going to ask you a question here. Did you, in this process, I should say, how did you pick who you were going to go to for those living with the disease? How did you find those individuals?
Well, we have very strong relationships and partnerships with all the regional Alzheimer chapters, but I also used to be the director of the Murray Alzheimer Research and Education Program, and we worked directly with people with dementia in all our work that we did. They were involved in decision-making processes in all of our research and knowledge translation activities. And so over the years, we've been able to build up a fairly large group of people with dementia and family members who we could go to in these instances. And so we would put out a call to either our colleagues in the regional chapters or to the colleagues who had worked with us, persons with dementia who had worked with us in the Mary Alzheimer Research and Education Program, and invite them. So, for example, that's how we invited people with dementia and family members to our arts-based research day, or if we were having an invited performance of pieces, as Julia talked about, then we would just put out an invite to a select group, because we didn't want huge numbers at those workshops where we could really get feedback on what was working well and what wasn't working well. So that's generally how we've done it. It's beneficial when you're a participatory researcher. You develop partnerships over years and if they're strong partnerships, you can often go back to them. But people find out about our work. Lots of people found out about that we were working on this play and contacted us as well. And so that we were able to sort of let them know when we were having performances or workshopping it and invite them that way as well.
Okay, well that makes sense. I figured you had connections and stuff, but I thought, well, for others listening that might want to be doing some creative work, how to tap into that would be an interesting process. I know even with a lot of the memory cafes and stuff, those people would be really open in terms of assisting with something like this. It's great to see. Mary Ellen, I'm going to go back to you and ask another question here.
Yes.
Since you're acting in this development, this play called Cracked, and you're now performing, all around in this show, what kind of reaction have you been getting from people? Because I would imagine that there are probably people with dementia in the audience as well as those that aren't diagnosed. So what kind of reaction are you getting from people? And also, how are you coping with disseminating your information, knowing you probably have a wide span in your audience? In terms of who's going to be out there and interpreting what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. There's been lots of different feedback after the show and response from people living with dementia as well as their intimate partners and caregivers. And I had there's always people that come up after the show and speak to us. And some of them it's very emotional. And sometimes during the talkbacks, people will get up and start speaking, and they can't finish what they're saying because it has definitely touched them. And, we'll have people say, that is my life. That is my dad up there. Might be a daughter talking about her dad or her mother. And that is, she said, how are you able to do that? And, of course, we explain, these are drawn from there's a hybrid of all kinds of stories and personal stories of our own. And I find those moments really, to be really present with everybody there in the room and with that person and to embrace that. It's a very, like I say, a very present moment. And also to have the folks that work in long-term care facilities also be confronted with a lot of caregivers will say, I have been trying to implement or trying to do these things, and as Sherry said, stop by a policy. And then there's also a reaction of, we're not all bad people. So in the process, that was a very important part of the process when we were workshopping or showing this to selected audiences, that we wanted to make sure everybody was represented authentically and positively and forward moving, but not to skirt away from the reality of what is happening. So those talkbacks were so essential in terms of forming what we have now been performing. And, I also remember a man coming back, and he it's often this very manly man, guys that probably don't cry very often in public. He was openly weeping to me and just talking about his mother. And that was, again, for me as an actor and as a person who has their parents living with dementia, to just sit with that person and be there. I think that is also, it also is exactly what we're playing with and dealing with in the play, about being present with the human, with a person. Be where they are right now. So I think that it's also for actors and for me as a human being, I am reminded, and I reflect back on that often during this process. It's like, be where we are right now, and certainly people living with dementia have that all over us. They're so present. I wish, sometimes I could be as present as my dad in that regard. So there's a great learning, and every time we do it, there's someone that comes forward. And also, I remember one of the men, and I'm sorry, Sherry, I can't remember his name, but he was part of our group when we did smiling in front. He was in the front row, and he was laughing and responding to the play in such a open way. And he remarked afterwards, thank you very much for this, and wonderful show. So, yeah.
Very, very neat. Very neat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sherry, can you tell us a little bit about the talkback portion? I just think that is so critical, because you have a live audience who has just absorbed something very emotional, and I just think it's such a powerful time. And so it sounds like you guys are doing talkbacks after the performance. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think as researchers we felt that ethically it was very important, once we saw how moving the play is and how people are moved, the emotions that are triggered because of it, that we felt it was very important for us to be able to engage with them in a way that would help them to be supported in what they were feeling, but also to talk with us about that if they felt comfortable doing that. So we try to have talkbacks of about 30 minutes after every performance we do, where we just engage with the audience about what the experience was like engaging with Cracked. What is it that they'd like to share with us about it? What were things that surprised them, or that they didn't know that they now are becoming aware of? What are some things they might do differently because they've seen Cracked? So it's a very important time for us to be able to support audiences, but also to gain important information in terms of what is it about the play that might be changing the way people think about people with dementia and how they act. There's so many responses we've had that we could talk about during the talkbacks that have just almost brought me to tears. But one in particular, when a person with dementia got up after a performance and said that she would no longer hide. She wasn't going to hide anymore. And another family member who had come to a performance who had fibbed to her mother with dementia because she didn't know whether her mother with dementia would approve of her coming to a play on dementia, who sort of got up and said, "Oh, I wish I had brought my mother with me. We could have engaged in this together as a family, and I'm going to go home and tell her that I was here." So the family wasn't talking about dementia. It was something that they were just ignoring. It was very challenging, and so Cracked was a place where where she came to see that it was important for her to be able to engage in conversations with her mother and other family members about dementia. So and of course we're doing research on it, and so we have a lot of comments, and we've done interviews and focus groups with people who have engaged with Cracked to see sort of what they're taking away from it. And it's pretty powerful in terms of how they come to really understand what being present, what being person-centered, how important relationships are in dementia care, that they really have to be at the core. So they come to really understand those principles far better and really come to understand what it means for them in their day-to-day interactions with people with dementia, which I think is really challenging when you're trying to take theory and translate that into practice. So the talkbacks are really, really important. We think they're part of that learning process because people, I think, see the courage in other people who are getting up and admitting they had assumptions and that they're going to do something about that. I think it's a very powerful place, and for us to witness that is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's I went to another play called My Mother Has Four Noses, done by Jonathan Brooks, and they did talkbacks, and I bet I've seen it 4 times, and every time, and I'm sure this would be the same with your play too, I got something different out of it. And then I would always bring new people, and then they would come, and then they would want to bring people because people loved having a place to be able to have this conversation, and and to still have this social kind of net wrapped around it. It just was a very, very safe, fun place to be. And I love that the way that you're structuring the talk back for people to express, their feelings. Maybe how does this relate to their own life? What would they change, and being more present and things. So you ladies are just doing wonderful, wonderful work, and I can't thank you enough for sharing this with us. Can you tell us, what the next steps are for CRACT, and how would people go about being able to see it?
Well, we've been really successful in securing funding for the development of CRACT. We were funded by the Canadian Institutes for Health Research to develop the play, and now we have an Alzheimer's Society of Canada grant to look at the impacts of it. What's challenging for us, however, is finding sustained funding to be able to tour CRACT more widely. We have been successful in getting some sponsorship for a fall tour that we'll be doing in southern Ontario and Ottawa in Ontario in September and October. September, of course, is Alzheimer Awareness Month. But we're in the process of developing some Arts Council grants to try and get some funding for broader tours of CRACT and really trying to develop a sponsorship plan or a development plan so that we can ensure that more people across the country and beyond can see it. So that's what we're working on right now, and hopefully one day we'll have a filmed version of it. We did that with I'm Still Here, and I'm Still Here is in almost every continent on this planet and has been televised on TV in other countries, and so our ultimate goal is to find some funding and to figure out the logistics of creating a filmed version of it. So that's kind of our next steps.
Okay. Well, wonderful. And we have on the radio page, you can email Sherry or Julia. And there's also the little video that'll give you an idea of it. So if you've got some ideas for funding, please get a hold of them so that we can get this play shared. It just sounds absolutely fabulous. And I thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. And Julia, do you have any last comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch quickly on the title of the play and why we've called it CRACT, because often we get people asking about that. And, of course, the word cracked historically has been a bit of a derogatory word for people who have Alzheimer's or dementia or who are having some kind of mental problem. And we wanted to really turn that idea on its head. I mean, the idea of the play, we want to turn the idea that having living with dementia is somehow a problem or, tragic, as Sherry talked about the tragedy discourse. So, and Leonard Cohen, who's a Canadian poet, has written a beautiful poem, which is also a song, called Anthem. And we were inspired by what he wrote about how cracks, there's a crack in everything, and the cracks are how the light gets in. So we kind of seized on that, as well as kind of trying to play with this metaphor of cracked as being negative, and saying, well, cracks are actually quite beautiful and can provide us opportunity to see things in a new way. And we all have cracks. That is part of what it is to be human. We all have things. Yeah, that's right. I'm not perfect. I know that sounds shocking, but I'm not. Nobody is, and that's part of humanity. And so those sort of combined things, we thought that cracked was going to be great. But often we get people asking about it and questioning it, and some people get quite offended by how dare you name this play Cracked, and it's such a terrible word, and it is, to use it in a particular way, it is not positive, and we're aiming to turn it around.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for bringing that to light, because that's normally a question I ask, and I just didn't this time, and I love that Cracked lets the light in, because I think there's so much brilliance and so much that we can learn from this disease for all of us to live better, and to live better as individuals and in community, which I think we've gotten really segued and kind of isolated into our own little, personal pillars, and, when you're dealing with dementia, I mean, it's a greater good concept. You really have to give in a different fashion and be more conscious of who you are and all your nonverbal communications, and coming to peace with maybe the quiet that we're so uncomfortable with, and seeing the beauty there. So there's multiple lessons. So you can get a hold of this play. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, and again, you can email Sherry or Julia directly, and also view the play. Mary Ellen, I just want to give you one last opportunity to say something as well, if you'd like.
That I think the more that we can have these kinds of performances and also these collaborations, the better. And as you said, it's about community. So I think that, we all, to live all together and to celebrate how we all see differently. And I hope that we get to bring this play far and wide. And thanks.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you all so much for being part of the show today. And you guys have a wonderful week, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and just do some mid-program highlights before I introduce our next guest here. For those of you who didn't hear the last couple radio shows, on the 23rd, we talked about care farms and dementia farms, which were absolutely fascinating. A concept that came from overseas, is now in Montana, and is just very interesting. They use farming, basically, on these care farms as their adult day, and they serve over 30,000 people on 1,500 different farms. Fascinating concept to allow people to live and participate and feel purposeful. Also did a special show on the 23rd regarding the Purple Angel documentary that is, it's been filmed over in the UK. They want to come over to the US. And that is all about helping spread awareness of the new global symbol for dementia. You can go to alzheimerspeaks.com, and on the homepage there is a roundtable discussion that you can hear talk about it, and then there's a video underneath it that'll take you to that campaign. But it's, the Purple Angel was started by a man called Norms McNamara and Jane Moore over in the UK to be inclusive of all dementias, and it's now in over 17 countries, and they want to be able to show the world the power behind social media and sharing and simple collaboration. Our next show, it will be on the 7th after the holiday weekend, and we're going to have Cameron Camp on with us, and he's going to be talking about the Alzheimer's syndrome, and he's got a video out on that. Very interesting, Alzheimer's syndrome versus Alzheimer's disease. Our last Dementia Chats was on the 23rd, and we had a great discussion about how people with dementia communicate and why, and how sometimes they can be misinterpreted. We also talked about the loss of emotional filters and the feeling of urgency due to the disease, and it being really a private time bomb for them as individuals. We also discussed how our government and organizations and sometimes individuals alike need more education and understanding of those with dementia. We ended up cutting that show a little bit short due to some technical difficulties, but I think you'll still get some great information there. On the blog, you will find posted on the 28th a great new toolkit devised by Wisconsin Healthy Brain Initiative for dementia-friendly communities. Absolutely fantastic. On the 25th, there were a couple of posts on the blog. One is 6 surprising health benefits that gardening provides, perfect timing for the summer. A little bit more about the Purple Angel documentary. And then on the dementia farms and the care farms on the 23rd, I have a ton of resources listed that I think you'll find extremely, extremely helpful. On that. We do want to mention again the Alzheimer's team. If you are interested in changing the future of and reshaping the future of research for Alzheimer's treatment, go to Facebook to the Alzheimer's team, or you can go to alzheimerspeaks.com on our front page, and you can get more information regarding a clinical trial that might be beneficial for you or a loved one to participate in. Let's go ahead and get on with our second half of our show. As always, I love these two individuals to death. We have Jytte Lokvig with us, who is a nationally recognized Alzheimer's expert, and she's got over 20 years of experience working with facilities on with both their staff development and program development, as well as private caregivers and families. She's worked with national groups advocating for person-centered care and innovative approaches, I should say, in helping people live rich and fulfilled lives. In 2008, she actually founded the first Alzheimer's cafe here in the U.S., and now there's over 150 around the country, and they're called Alzheimer's cafes, memory cafes. There's a little differentiation there, but you'll talk to us a little bit about that. She is also the author of a couple of great books, the Alzheimer's A to Z, Quick Reference Guide, and the Alzheimer's Creativity Project, and then also the Alzheimer's and Dementia Handbook. So let me pull her on, and welcome, Jytte. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, and we really lucked out because my phone gave out this morning. I got it running. I literally had it about 5 minutes ago, and so here I am. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad. I'm thrilled you are with us as well. Let me go ahead and just introduce Carole. Carole Larkin has so many initials after her name. I in so many accreditations, I can't even get into all of them. But she is also a nationally known expert in Alzheimer's and related dementia care. She's a certified geriatric care manager who specializes in helping families with Alzheimer's and related dementia issues. She consults with families on the telephone and in person. She works on family problems related to dementia, which can be many. And she trains caregivers in person and via video. So Carole has just been just a strong, strong resource. You probably read several of her articles too. She's also done training videos on YouTube and other videos, and you can view those on her company site as well. So welcome, Carole. How are you today?
Hey, Lori. Hey, Jytte. I'm good.
Well, that's
can
good.
You hear me?
Yep,
yeah,
we can.
Okay.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
So.
All good.
Okay, wonderful. I'm gonna start out with throwing a question to Jytte, and talk about why Alzheimer's or memory cafes. Can you just tell people a little bit about them, and where did they start, and kind of how did they merge? Because they were kind of two different concepts, but they seem like they've melded together a little bit over the years. And maybe you have a different perspective of that than I do. So why don't you give us your insights to the two?
Okay, very very quickly. Background: the very first one was started by Dr. Meesen in the Netherlands in 1997. His specialty was working with people with dementia, including Alzheimer's, and he decided that there was a great need for people with the disease and their caregivers and families to get together, mostly socially. I believe that in the early ones he also included information on caregiving and the disease and such. And then it actually moved to England in 2000. And that, as far as I can tell, and you know more about this, both of you know more about this actually than me. As far as I can tell, it's about half and half. Like half are really focused on the social aspects, and half are a mixture again. And when I first learned about it, we already had a lot of sessions going in Santa Fe, support groups and workshops and such that gave wonderful information, but we saw a huge need for just a time and a place for people to come together and to socialize and just be without focusing on the disease. And so that's what I focused on when I started the cafe in Santa Fe in 2008. And at this point, as far as I can tell, in this country also we're about half and half between the social model and the mixture of social and information model. And cafes call themselves everything from memory cafes to neighborhood cafes to dementia cafes. It doesn't really matter. I think, to me, what's important is that it is an event that includes both the caregiver and the person living with a disease.
Yep, I agree. Carole, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Actually, Jytte summed it up perfectly, and I couldn't agree more about, the most important thing is for both of them, sure. So, yeah, no, nothing to add. Good job, you say.
Yeah, I know with ours, Arthur's, we've got 3 of them now that all meet at the same time, but in different rooms, and we kind of float between the 2 models. So with our group, it's primarily social, but about quarterly they want an educational program. And what we found with our group is, they bring things to the table, and a lot of times they are very instrumental in terms of coordinating it. In fact, they've done some programs all on their own where they've just totally gotten the speakers, found a spot to have it at because it's going to be even a bigger audience, and they want to open it up past just our memory cafe. And so it's really been kind of fun. But we usually, and I don't know if you guys do this with your groups, but we check in about quarterly and say, how are we doing and what do we need to adjust? Because our members change. We get new ones in, and things. We've lost a few people, or people have gotten placed, or maybe someone's passed, but the caregiver is still participating in the group. So, really emerged a lot. Have you seen that or felt that too with your group, Jytte? Did you do?
Yes, our group also changes a lot. I mean, that's just par for the course, I think. And as a matter of fact, right now we're discussing where to go next because in the last 2 years or so, the group has really wanted to be focused on creativity, everything from making music, writing poetry to making art and such. And lately they said, let's go beyond a group. And they were talking about bringing people in from the outside, like almost like an artist in residence kind of thing, or just information stuff, or just interesting things. And so we're looking at changes right now.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. How about you, Carole? Does your group kind of go with the flow, or do you have a set structure when you're dealing with them?
No. Our groups are just, I don't know, I guess you call them totally loose. Totally loose. They
I love it.
Yeah. It really is of the people, by the people, for the people. We have a facilitator there, but really it's just to fill in the gaps if there happen to be gaps. We really encourage our people to take it up themselves. It's their power, so they do what they want, or as much or as little. We're just sort of anarchists in a way. We just let them go, and they really, really like, the empowerment because it's theirs. So, sometimes they're doing a project, crafts or music or whatever. Sometimes they just chat amongst themselves. Sometimes they're there just eating the snacks, it's whatever it is, whatever they want. It's all good. The point is they're meeting together and they're enjoying themselves. And yes, members change and come and go, but it's the lack of pressure of the thing, that everybody really likes,
Yeah, we have, in fact, with ours, we're just so lucky. We have ACR healthcare group and Arthur's Residential support us. They give us the space in the coffee shop, and they actually approached us and said, we would like to. We meet twice a month from 1 to 3. And they said, we would really like to offer space every week. And we found that we couldn't facilitate it every week. So twice a month, we have facilitated groups, and then twice a month they have private space that they can come and gather on their own and just get together. And it's just so gracious, of them. They're just such a wonderful, wonderful group to partner with. I just can't say enough good things about them. We haven't had a ton of people attending, but we have had several couples that really enjoy just that extra time, to have something to do. So that's been kind of interesting too. So that was a big shift for us. And do you guys do any of that where it's not facilitated?
Yeah, we certainly do. Being the way we are, friendships have developed, and it's not just 2 sets of people. It might be 5 sets of people, and they just get together on their own for sure.
Okay, great.
We had the same experience. We had the same experience. Actually, we had several. We've had on and off. We had offshoots where people, our guests, have gotten together on their own to set up like walking clubs or just breakfast clubs. They one thing they all share is they love eating, and actually they did an art group for a while outside of the cafe as well. So same thing. I think we helped them sort of open up the possibilities.
Right.
Yep.
That's right.
The developing of friendships is so strong. We've had a couple of people who have gone through hospice or have passed away, and the support in our group as people go through the stages is incredibly strong, and just such a beautiful thing to witness. And reaching out to one another to support one another is just it's absolutely marvelous. And one of the things I always say is, people come in not quite sure this is what they want to do, and by the end of the 2 hours they're like, sign me up, you want me to talk to the media, I'm on board.
Right,
exactly. They just totally switch. I had one gal who sent her parents. Her mom really wanted to come, her dad didn't want to. Her dad did not. Her dad was the one who was diagnosed. He never talked about having dementia, didn't like using any of the words. Came to one meeting, and she said the very next day she took her dad out for lunch, and she was meeting a friend from high school, and she's my age, probably in her 50s, late 40s, 50s, and meeting a gal from high school who she hasn't seen in ages, and so her dad joined them, and she said she was shocked because at lunch her dad talked all about the Memory Cafe and told her that he was diagnosed, and he had never, ever shared that with anybody. She says the group just made him feel so comfortable and so empowered that his voice was important and that people needed to know. And she says he's like a whole other person now. And it's so much easier now for her mother as well, and the family, because they don't feel like they have to, step on eggshells, that it's okay to talk about it and be honest with whatever is going on. And it was very, very cool. We do have a caller on the line, so let me just pull this person in. We've got a caller from an 831 number. Do you want to state your name and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
My name is Debbie Dodd, and I'm a gerontologist, and I'm really interested in your memory cafes. And I've started a couple of my own from a little different approach by using tablet computers with people with memory loss and their care partners.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so I have a question on that. Is that our tablets? Is that something you supply or something that they have to have in order to be part of the group? How does that work, Debbie?
So we started the first one at a library, and the library purchased the equipment, and then we supply what we call coaches or mentors so that people don't have to actually mechanically know how to use the tablet. They can just enjoy the activities we're providing, which are very engaging. And the second one, we provide equipment. But what we do find is that people really want to use this method that really would like to use tablets. So many people come, test it out, and then purchase their own or bring their own with them.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And how long have you been doing this, Debbie?
I would say about a year. It was a project for my master's in gerontology. So it started about a year ago as a school project.
Okay, wonderful.
Could I ask a question to Debbie?
Sure, go ahead, Carole.
Very intriguing, and my question is, do the participants also interact with each other? I'm assuming the group gets together physically and does this. Do they also interact with each other while at the same time interacting with the tablet?
It's primarily designed to support the dyad of the care partner and somebody with memory loss, so that the experience is kind of with them individually. So they're in the room. We think of it as they're alone together, but there's times where where people are working together on one topic or one type of an application, but primarily they are working to say. So I look at it as, I think we know what the journey of memory loss looks like. And I think this is one way we can kind of pack some memories for that trip. So we provide an activity where people can record stories or sing songs or do games they like, so that as they go farther down the road, they still have things with them that make them feel more like themselves.
I see. I see. So this is more, I don't know, educational rather than social.
No, I think it's actually really both. It's the ability to come out. So is this Carole? Is that who I'm talking to?
Yes,
Correct.
sorry, yes, it's Carole. Yeah.
So I found your toolkit, and after I'd already kind of created this, and there's a quote in your toolkit about being able to come to a place and be social and engage, and I use that all the time, and I quote you because that's exactly what we're trying to do. So people have the ability to come to a normal environment like a cafe or a library where they can be with other people, but they aren't necessarily there for education about memory loss. They're there for engagement and enrichment.
Well, that helps me understand greatly. That's what a noble thing to do. Bravo.
So I have a question, Debbie. How do we get more information on your project?
I think probably from me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just starting. So I am now teaming up with it's a complicated process, but it's an easy process. I think what we've found is I trained volunteers to be the mentors because as tablets came out, they were productivity devices for people like us that self-initiate. We want to use email or the internet or any of the applications. Right. But with memory loss, you aren't really able to do that, but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the functionality of it. So we have to train people that can operate the equipment seamlessly and then train them on the applications that we found that are more beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
That's Carole. That's understandable. Makes perfect sense to me.
Right. And this is Jytte. Have you been on the Alzheimer's Cafe website, by the way, and are you familiar with the National Registry?
I've been there, but I don't think I've seen the National Registry.
That's why I asked you, how can we get in contact with you? Because I'm intrigued. I would love to learn some more, and I think it sounds as if it's something that other communities actually might be able to follow suit with. And if you not be proprietary about it. So anyway, I'm not asking if you are, but I really would like some more information for me and just for the world out there. Great.
Yeah, definitely. Great. I'll look that up. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there and contact me. But I just want to give one practical example that might help make it real, and I'll do it from a personal perspective because my mother has memory loss as well. So that's kind of actually how I got here, which I think is typical with folks that come a little bit later to it.
Right.
So I use a program called, I actually use a quadrant. I've identified 4 areas that I think work really well with memory loss. And one of those areas is life stories or reminiscence. And I use a program, an app called Swaha, and it allows me to narrate a story over pictures. So I found that, and I think we know most older people don't really want to be videotaped, and oftentimes as their ability diminishes, they don't even recognize themselves in that video. So using pictures that stimulate memory is a really great way I've found to create a feeling. So I had done several different stories with my mom and through this way, and she fell one time and had to go. We went into urgent care. We were stuck in a room for an hour, but I happened to have my iPad with me, and we were able to go through these really lovely feelings that we talked about together. I kind of interviewed her, and we'd created these narrative visual stories. So we had that to do. We had our music with us. We had games with us, and the whole landscape changed. And that's just a practical reason why you would want to maybe find these things and record them and use them later on.
Sure. That's
good idea.
That's a great use.
Yep.
That is an excellent use.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's always fun to hear new things that people are trying and learning and willing to share out there. It's endless, and there's such a large need out there. I'd also love to have you input yourself into Alzheimer's Speaks resource directory too, under the Memory Cafe section. Jytte's list I think is more accurate because I'm just asking people to take the time to put themselves in. I just don't have the staff time to be able to keep it updated. So I think Jytte's list is probably the most effective, but to be able to share it in as many fashions as possible never hurts either, to let people know. So great. Anything else that you wanted to tell us about what you're doing, Debbie? So glad you called in.
Thank you. I was glad I found you. I guess I'll just say the one thing that I kind of got from the earlier section of the show. I think this is kind of a melding of two really big trends that I see. One is the culture change movement, where we're really acknowledging the person behind the disease and letting people be the authors of their own story. But to do that, you really have to know who that person is. And if we plan ahead a little and we pack some of those mental comfort things that we like, all the care teams coming forward will have a chance to really see who we are. So that's the one trend is the culture change movement. And then also the other piece, I think, is the amount of effort that technology is really starting to put into aging. They're doing it in many different ways, but there are specific companies now that work primarily on people with memory loss. There's apps that are directed only at them. There's sensor technology. There's all sorts of wearables. And I think these two things are going to come together and really help us provide a much more person-centered approach for our friends and family with memory loss.
This is Jytte again. Can I interject something?
Sure.
Debbie, I think your project could serve an enormously important role. I always encourage families to give facilities in particular, or any caregivers that get involved, family history or the person's history, personal history, right? But honestly, I don't think they read them. I really don't think they read them. But a short visual would be so powerful.
Thank you.
I love this. I mean, I want more information, and I'll be pushing you, okay?
Great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
One of the things, too, that I'll mention is on I want to say it's the 14th. I'll check my schedule while I'm talking here. But on the 14th, we're going to be having somebody coming that's got some technology about storytelling in pictures. That's an app for a phone that's just absolutely incredible. That would be really user-friendly in communities and stuff. And I want to say it's on the 14th. I'm pretty sure that's when Patrick's going to be joining us. But very interesting stuff. And again, I think you're right. They don't have time to read it. But a short video or something, they'll access, and will make such a big difference. And for people, Patrick Talia will be joining us on technology making a difference on the 14th. So that'll be an interesting show as well. It might be something you and Carol and Debbie that you want to participate in as callers as well on that. So neat. Let's get back to. I want to throw another question back out to Carol. Carol, you have done a lot of writing and stuff on the memory cafes, and what kind of response are you seeing from people out there?
I got to be honest with you, it's quieter than I had hoped, but it's mostly the response is confusion as to what it is. They think of it as a support group. They want to lump it in with the already known quantities. So most of the time I'm explaining it actually isn't. That's more it. But remind me to come back to support groups because I'm in on something new. No moss under my feet. So I'm all into something new. So that's really it. There's they have sprung up all around Dallas. I'm guessing we're at maybe a dozen now here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are, for the most part, self-generated, which is, kind of what we thought in the beginning. So I got to say, at least at this point in time, the concept has been really successful, and that's a really nice thought.
Mm-hmm.
You can see something and then, oh my God, it actually works. That was pretty cool.
Exactly. Well, that's very neat. You wanted to say something about support groups, so go ahead and go off on that tangent. That's fine.
Okay.
You've got something else up your sleeve?
Pardon?
You have something else up your sleeve?
Oh yeah, always. So this is a support group. It's one of the normal defined support group things. This one that I've gotten involved with is men only, no women allowed. Okay, 4 guys, 5 guys, that sort of thing. I came to speak at one of their support group meetings a couple months ago. And the group, I guess, had been going for about 4 years, with people coming and going, men coming and going and coming and going. And it's a real strong, stable support group in that sense. It's not going away. The leader of the group, this guy, it's all about men who, for the most part, wives, have one of the dementias. Now and then it's the son, too, but for the most part it's the men with wives. So when I went and talked to them, I got their attention sort of by saying, you guys have it rougher than, than women, in all honesty. You have it rougher, in high school, they went to shop. They didn't go to home ec,
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, they're new to caregiving. And then they're, having to deal with, if you will, the proverbial worst of the worst type of caregiving, one of the dementias. And there were guys in this group, who were, it was like the whole span. Some guys were just new in the early stages. Some of them were, dealing with the middle stuff. There were people there that were, at the end, and their, wives were and mothers were on hospice. And the really interesting thing that I got out of this, out of my talk with them, there were, let me back up and say there were 18, which I think is like huge for a support group. 18
Mm-hmm.
there at the time, and found out what I did. A third of them called me within a week because they wanted me to help them place their wives. And I thought that was really telling, and I did that. And helping them place their wives brought something else to the fore. And this is actually the point I'm trying to make, that once they had placed their wives, they themselves were at a huge loss as to what to do with their own lives. They really were. You know, once I'm out of the 24/7 caregiving role, now what is sort of it. And so, and I know it's true for anybody, but it seems to me, bless their hearts, men are not creative about thinking about what else is in their lives besides their wives and family, you know, that they may need to be encouraged a little bit to think about what else they might like to give themselves mental and physical respite from the now transferred worry about how the wife is at others' hands. So the next thing that we're going to go look at is the men's group meets once a month. You know, it's just a regular support timetable. We're going to look at maybe a second meeting a month, not to specifically, you know, talk about the problems, but dealing with their wives, but for the men to discover other interests as a group, so to speak, because these are guys they know, other interests that they may be able to then go off and use to fill their lives. It sounds nebulous, but give me a second. For example, maybe there's 5 or 6 guys, and 1 month, this is all from what they want to do. Maybe 1 month they're going to the World War II aircraft, you know, museum. Maybe the next month they're going to go do something with golf, you know, whether it's the driving range or putt-putt or whatever, you know. Maybe the next month they'll go fish. The point is that they're doing something to relieve their stress. They're doing it with people that they know are also under stress, and maybe they'll be getting some ideas individually, you know, exposure to things that they may or may not have even known they were interested in. Mm-hmm. I think that, so, you know, I know it's sort of scattered down a really small niche of a niche of a niche, but when I was talking to these guys, I saw that it was a huge need for them to fill the gap in their lives, maybe not completely, but at least partially, you know, when they lost their hands-on caregiving responsibility because they came to see, that, you know, doing it, that was their entire world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely does. Jytte, what are your thoughts on kind of an all-male support group? And
I think it's fantastic. Okay, couple of thoughts. Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you're following through on this, Carole, and that you're getting involved and helping them out, because I could see how this would happen. I mean, especially with the generation that we're working with, most of the really intellectual, social stuff, other than sports, was always arranged by the wives.
Right.
And they're just not used to making, you know, even going there, good thinking about it. So, I mean, next time you meet with them, what I'd suggest is ask them if there was anything that they really enjoyed doing that their wives had arranged for them to do, like theater, right. Music, all that kind of stuff, just to open it up to them that they can actually do it themselves. But if they're typical of the guys that I know, they wouldn't even think about it. You
right.
know, it's like that's women's world. But I'm delighted. I'm going to pass this on to support group initiators in my area. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
I do.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing this, and thank you, Lori, also for actually making these things happen. To bring us together in this way. It's and the community out there listening in. It's so important, and it's been
really
so valuable.
It really
thanks,
is,
Lori.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. The gathering with the guys, I know that I've heard that many times being a need, because they don't want, they're worried about getting emotional sometimes in front of a group. Is what I've heard for some, and yet when they see one of their buddies break down, they get it, and it's safe to do. For them, and again, different activities of engagement, really important stuff. But we have, I know in our memory cafe, we have a lot of men taking care of their wives, and right now they're really liking the engagement of the memory cafe where they can be there as a couple. But sometimes you need that alone time too, with just your own friends, and that would be perfect. That would actually be a great spin-off for some of these, even if the guys just get together for a coffee or something too, or lunch, or or do a hobby, but let them find their own space that works well with them, because women have been doing that for years. Because again, like you pointed out, they're the ones that have always kind of, for the most part, and again, I know we're stereotyping here, but they've been the arrangers, they've been the event planners, and and stuff. So big difference. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left. I just can't believe how fast the time goes here. Why don't we talk a little bit about, I think we've kind of talked already just in general conversation of why people come to the cafes. I think it's just for comfort and safety, and people that understand, their situation, and that they are also, in my eyes anyways, and you guys please speak up if you don't feel this way, but in the groups that I have anyways, and the ones that I've been involved with, they're all about positioning the disease almost in second place. It's the thing that pulls people together, but it's not the primary focus of the discussion. And and so it really is about becoming whole again, and for relationships to take front stage, because sometimes the disease pushes them back, and just kind of stuffs them. And to me, that's the biggest gift. I, as a facilitator, that I see, I get such great joy in being able to watch people bloom again and feel comfortable in their own skin and laughing. I mean, we do a ton of laughing, and I know your groups do as well. There's times my cheeks are sore, by the time I leave, going, okay, I need a break here, but it's so healthy to laugh, and yet we cry together at times, and it's just, all emotions are really welcomed and accepted in our groups. We really haven't had, I guess, anyone, somebody might be angry, but I mean, they don't get physically angry. But, there's frustration, and it's a safe place to be able to say that or to share ideas and things. I don't know. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I just want to say amen. I'm absolutely with you. Some of my favorite anecdotes that I got for families had to do with laughing for the first time in years. From the I think it was the second cafe that I held way back then, a wife sent me a note and said, I had not seen my husband enjoy himself in 7 years. And he even talked about it all the way home. And this is a man who was like in the pretty advanced stages of the disease. And, that's why we're doing this. And you're absolutely right. And to get people also who are living with a disease to relax enough that they can laugh and share stuff with each other, even disease stuff. I mean, they will talk about problems that they encounter and that the other person totally understands. Oh, yeah, that happened to me last week, you know, and laugh about it. That's our bonus. Because for those out there in the world, we're almost all volunteers. You know, nobody really gets paid to do this. We do it on a volunteer basis, so that's our payoff, is to see that we're making a real difference in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I couldn't agree more. You know, I think it's one of the world's best examples of person first, disease second, you know. The more you can push it in the background, you know, and just make this the normal person, you know. I mean, a normal person in a normal situation, in a normal relationship, even though to people who don't understand it, it's abnormal. But at that point in time, it's all good. It's all normal. You know, that's
right.
That's a win. That's a win-win-win.
Yep.
You got it.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Well, let's see here. Let's address, you know, the names, you know, Memory Cafe, Alzheimer's Cafe. You know, who is welcome to come to these? You know, on an Alzheimer's Cafe, Jytte, can you share with the audience, is it only people with Alzheimer's or are all dementias welcome?
No. And also why I chose to, actually I chose to call it the Alzheimer's Cafe for the same reason that Dr. Meason did back when he started the first one, because out there in the public, the Alzheimer's is the one dementia that really strikes incredible fear in people. And because it does, people who are diagnosed with Alzheimer's also are facing horrible stigmas that are way beyond what other dementias are facing. And on the other hand, realistically, Alzheimer's is a dementia. It's just another dementia, and it's actually probably the easier one to live with than several of the others. And the public doesn't realize that. So, in a way, calling it the Alzheimer's Cafe is like shoving it at people's faces. And that's deliberate, you know, and then making it a very positive thing. I mean, we're in the Children's Museum, so our environment is wonderfully cheerful just as soon as you walk in and stumble over little kids, you know. And we get the squeals through the door, and sometimes they roam in if we're singing. They want to see what we're doing. And it's just as a positive thing, and there's a positive slant on Alzheimer's itself. So that was the main reason. Anybody with any dementia, of course, is welcome. It has nothing to do with the dementia that you're living with or the person that you're caring for, or anybody else. I mean, we invite the public at large, you know, because I also want people to experience that people with dementia are just people with dementia. They're like you and me, but they have dementia, like they would have diabetes, except their diabetes may not, you know, affect their memory that much. But I mean, it's another condition among many, many conditions. And we're still primarily just people, and that's what we focus on. So that's the main reason. Internationally, I also, when I started realizing that how wide this movement is around the world by now, I also realized how important it is that we can actually join the international community. And unfortunately, the name Memory Cafe doesn't translate. Alzheimer's translates. Everybody in the world understands Alzheimer's. But memory is an English word, and it's fine in English-speaking countries, but not in other countries.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
I know. You know, so actually, when we established, and you guys were both part of that, when we established the the National Alzheimer's Cafe Alliance, that also includes, of course, any other cafe.
Sure.
Memory Cafe, Dementia Cafe, Neighborhood, whatever.
Yep.
But it was deliberate to use Alzheimer's again for the same reason.
Okay.
That it's recognized.
Okay, great. We're going to have to wrap up here. So, Jytte, do you want to give people your contact information real quick so they can find out how to get to the registry and hit you as well?
Absolutely. The easiest way to get hold of me is through the website that holds the registry, and that's very simply alzheimerscafe.com. Just that, one long word, and my contact information is in there. If you are planning to start an Alzheimer's Cafe, all three of us, I know, I'm speaking for you two as well, all three of us will be glad to help you get it off the ground. And just so you know, it doesn't have to cost anything, okay? It can be absolutely free. That's really important for you to know.
I also want to sneak in Carole's information before we get cut off. She can be reached at thirdageservices.com, thirdageservices.com for Carole Larkin, and myself at Alzheimer Speaks. Have a great week, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, Jared Sebestier, host of Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30 or 40 plus years, retiring on Friday, without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.